what's up for you, right, Sharon? Yeah. Okay. I'm not even sure what day it is lately. It's been one of those few days anyway. So before we start with the questions and those kinds of things, let's just start in the heart. So if we'll go ahead and just close our eyes for a second, and let's just breathe straight into that heart space. And as we breathe into that space, breathe in as if it's the only place that you can breathe into. And as you exhale, you're going to exhale out 360 degrees around you, kind of creating a nice space or a nice buffer from the outside world. Even if it just lasts for the next hour, that breathing in to the heart space and exhaling it out 360 degrees. And this time we're going to breathe in a little bit of our magician energy. We're going to breathe that right into the heart space. And we're going to exhale that out 360 degrees. A lot of us have been needing to rely on the warrior kind of energy for quite some time now. So it's just again, if it's only for an hour, we're going to breathe in that magician energy, those potentials and possibilities and everything that's available, just in a moment. And we'll exhale that out 360 degrees around us. And then one more deep inhale. And this time when we exhale, we're going to breathe that magician energy. We're going to breathe those potentials and possibilities out beyond ourselves and out into the collective. There we go. Inhaling that deep, deep, deep into the heart and exhaling it right out past our own boundary or past our own 360-degree bubble and right out into the collective. Yeah. Send a little magic everybody's way. All right. And then when you're ready, you can just open your eyes. Yeah. So part of the reason that I brought the magician in today is, like I was saying, I think there's so much that is evoking the warrior energy in us right now. I mean, there are so many unknowns, and most of us, when we're in unknown territory, go back to what we know. And most of us have been using some kind of warrior energy, from the time we were little kids and well into our adulthood. So when things are heightened in our world, we have a tendency to go right back to those. So we're just adding a little magician today, complete with fairy wings and everything else if we need it. So, all right. So, do you have questions for me, Sharon?
I do. All
Okay.
right. So it says, thank you for taking my question in advance. I do have lower back pain. It comes up anytime, stays a day or two, and then goes away. Anything specific it indicates, and anything I should do to help myself. Much love.
Right. So, yeah, lower back pain, I think, is you could probably ask 100 people right now if how their backs are feeling, and most of them will tell you that there's some kind of discomfort, either based on what they're shouldering or lower down in the back, which is typically around stability. And so it makes perfect sense right now, with the world in the transition that it's in, that again, our own stability is going to be in question. And it's also very common for that, if we have had experiences early in our lives, especially that were destabilizing in any way, it has a tendency to kind of hold in that part of our backs. So, so my question would be to myself is, what can I do in this moment to bring myself stability? What in this moment can I do to kind of to release some of that tension? And for me, anyway, a lot of times it's, letting everything outside be outside, let that go for a little while and find ways of nurturing myself, of, bringing a little bit of joy into the experience. The other thing I will say is, that whole pelvic girdle, that the smaller the back, the pelvic girdle can also be around stability, around, it can be around financial stability, emotional stability. It can be around literally like the foundation of where you find yourself in the world right now. And so it's also probably not a bad idea to just literally talk to that part of your body. It's like, I know that stability is an issue now. I know it's a little scary out there. Talk to it as if it was, yeah, personify that part of your body and speak to it as if it was hearing every word you were saying. You'll literally get it to relax. And there's all kinds of in doing it this way, you'll relax it from the inside out. You'll relax it from the emotion that created it in the first place, um, from the inside out. Yeah. So I hope that's helpful.
All right. This question is, I'm having a hard time staying in alignment and it affects my productivity. And then I feel worse. How can I manage this better?
Yeah, such a good question. It's like I'm hoping I hear the answer myself. So we'll see where this one goes. So give me just a minute. So we're again, we've got to cut ourselves a little bit of slack because even if you're the strongest, most grounded person in the world, the transformation that's going on out in the world is a little destabilizing. I mean, it's just that way. And so, so when we're looking to be productive at a time where parts of us, like part of our community, let's say if there are all of these different aspects of ourselves in our inner community, part of those, some of those aspects are like, let's get going. I want to be productive. I know that experience very well. It's like, I'm ready to create what's beyond what's been before, right? And that probably is the same for you as well. And then you get ready to step into that. And the other part of your community says, no, wait a minute. That we're feeling a little unstable. We're feeling a little unsafe. We're feeling a little exhausted by all that's going on right now. And what you'll notice is you can't drag yourself into productivity if those other aspects of yourself are have needs, right? And so I would first acknowledge that if all of you was ready to be productive right now, if all the aspects of you were ready to be productive and charge into the world with, all of your brilliance, then everybody would be on board for that. All the inner aspects would be on board. Since you're not, since that's not happening that way, instead of beating up on the parts of yourself that aren't quite ready, let's just talk to those parts of ourselves. Let's just talk to them. Um and I don't know about you, but sometimes, I put down on a piece of paper, there's the one that feels a little nervous, there's the one that um is a little uncertain about whatever, there's the one that's just exhausted. Let's go back to each one of those and just let them have their voice. Let's hear what they have to say. and ask them what they require or what they need. And sometimes when those aspects are heard, then that energy level just goes up naturally. And then everybody in the community starts going in the same direction. So I'm in exactly the same place. So if that's helpful, it's not just you. The I think the most important piece though is, and I heard you say this in your question, when you get frustrated or you start beating up on yourself because you're not being productive, it's like those inner parts of yourself are hearing you kind of being frustrated with them or irritated by them, disgusted by them even sometimes. So again, we wouldn't want to speak to anybody like that who was really we were wanting to encourage to move forward. So we're going to go back and speak to them very nicely. Yeah, supportively.
Okay, next question. I have a continuing love-hate relationship with sugar, and I find myself thinking that weight gain related to eating too much sugar may be in my mind, but then also see weight gain ancestral. Born into the physical type, wondering how to approach my relationship to sugar given my born conditioning. Thank you.
Yeah, so beyond conditioning, or those are the stories we tell ourselves in many ways to, like you say, justify the relationship that we currently have to sugar. But the important piece is, and this is not just sugar, this is anything. Um, what is our relationship in this now moment to it? What does it bring up? How does it make us feel? What parts of ourselves are we beating up on again? um, to saying that we somehow shouldn't want it, or um, or even like a lot of times when we start saying things like, well, it's in my lineage, or I watched my parents use sugar as to sedate, right? When we kind of start using those kind of comments, let's just bring ourselves right back to the now. Let's bring ourselves right back, right here, right now. What is the need for the sugar in this moment? Yeah. And before we have the sugar, just giving ourselves to meet that internal need first. And a lot of times, sugar can just be a bit of a desire for some sweetness in life. It's I've heard a lot of people through lockdown and COVID and whatever the stories are that are all out and about, whether we believe them or agree with them or not is irrelevant. We're still in this place of, again, kind of heightened vulnerability. And when we're in heightened vulnerability, we're going to be looking for a little sweetness, right? So we don't have to make ourselves wrong for that, but let's definitely have a conversation about what it is. Why is it that I'm reaching for that? What is it that feels like it needs that? And can I satisfy that desire for a little sweetness in my life by doing something else, by repatterning it? It really has very little to do mm, with our lineage and that kind of thing as far as this is concerned. Whoever you are is you're past that part. Now it's just a matter of I'm right here with myself, which feels like you're very capable of being. And yeah, yeah, and talking to those parts. Yeah.
Okay. There are tiny fruit flies or similar itsy bitsy teensy weensy flies that seem to be around me daily in my house. I admit that I captured them in my hands to release their spirits from their bodies. I don't want to hurt them, but they are a nuisance. So back to spirit they go with a prayer. Any thoughts on why these tiny creatures seem to wish to spend time with me?
um, huh. Um, So I have another question. So hopefully you can just put it in the chat. So when they're around, I know what you do about them, but I'm interested in how does it make you feel? Is it an irritant? Is it frustration? Is it something that you think that you're attracting? What's the feeling state of them being around? Don't
Just
know.
a little annoyed.
Annoyed. Okay. All right. So um okay. So well, okay, I'll tell you just what I'm getting, which is making me smile. So, um, based on how you are supporting their transition, based on what you're doing on the other side of it, um, clearly you're conscious and you're aware of how you want to engage with this experience, right? And so a little annoyance for you goes a really long way. And to me, it feels like there is a few other things that might be a little annoyance in your reality at the moment. And I would take a look at what those are. So let's say if the energy of annoyance is kind of maybe let's say in the depths of your being somewhere, there's, I mean, right, everybody has annoyance, nobody has we're not trying to get rid of annoyance. We're trying to identify it. Where is it? Right? So the experience of fruit flies or whatever it is, that part in many ways is irrelevant. It's not that particular uh, energy being attracted for specific reasons. It's not the fruit fly piece or whatever. It's the annoyance piece. So if there's an energy of annoyance, let's just look at it. Let's just we can release that annoyance within as beautifully and effortlessly as you are releasing those fruit flies to move on when you capture them in your hands. So, and you might even use that methodology, right? Let's pull together all of those annoyances that are going on. Mine would be a very long list right now. I'd have a big bubble to put those in, and literally just bubble them up and release them. It's like let's give some movement and some energy to that which is an annoyance, um, in life right now. And I have a sense that they'll disappear. So, yeah.
All right. You mentioned the luminaries in the monthly call. Wondering if you could speak more on that group. The luminaries come up in my process of becoming all of me.
The Lemurians.
Lemurians.
Right? Is that what? Yeah, yeah. So speaking to about the Lemurians a little bit more. So, um, so my relationship to the Lemurians was when I first started working with kids on the spectrum, and a lot of times they would say that they had not been here since the time of Lemuria. And so there are a few different things. In Lemuria, we had bodies of light, and we were much more driven by, let's say, an internal awareness of self and capacity than, like, say, the Atlantean races were much more geared towards technical kinds of experiences. So like right now we have AI and that whole conversation about AI that's coming up right now on the planet. That would be more of an Atlantean kind of technology, whereas a Lemurian kind of technology is a little bit about what I'm talking to you all about tonight, about being able to be present with different aspects of ourselves, treating ourselves as an inner community, a community that collectively um, is light, collectively is one source. And so as we do that, we kind of align with that Lemurian energy, which has a tendency to lighten us up in all kinds of ways. When you, I think you, Sharon, correct me, but I think she said something about that Lemurian energy has to do with her own embodiment now. Was that the case? Okay. To put in here is we are absolutely embodying more and more light all the time, just without question. There's just more embodiment of light, whether we actually want to embody that light or whether we're calling it forth or not. It's just simply time. When the when I was talking to the collective consciousness of the kids, on a regular basis, they would always say when we turn the corner, when we turn the corner of collective human evolution, they used to always say, go directly back to Lemuria, do not stop at Atlantis. And now I understand what they meant because they were talking about, turning this big corner that we're turning in collective with within collective humanity right now, and using that turning of that corner to not go back to external um, an external means of amping up our consciousness or amping up our vibration, but to actually use those internal means, right? So my guess is that when you talk about the Lemurian aspect of you being part of your embodiment process right now, yes, you're embodying a lot more light than you or we as the collective have ever embodied before. And two, stay right with that and stay right with what you know about yourself because of that embodiment. And that'll help you definitely kind of follow that Lemurian track um, as we all evolve instead of the Atlantean one. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. I've been getting twinges of gripping pains for the past 2 days in places where I've never had pain, like my left collarbone, fleeting, but I can't see any reason for them. And I've had pain in ankle heel I fractured 12 years ago, but have no pain there since the fracture healed. I'm releasing energy cysts unrelated to anything I can remember.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I think you just answered your question. That we have what we're processing now through our bodies, through our minds, and through our emotions are number one, uh, not linear in the sense that we're pulling it from everywhere and anywhere, right? So you could be pulling that information in through the collarbone from another lifetime or another incarnation. You can also be pulling that energy from someone else, either close to you or not. So, and it's just interesting that you're bringing up collarbone. So I'm going to give you this example. It was quite a while ago now. I was divorced and had been divorced for years, over a decade or so. And I went to a acupuncturist, and he was reading my body. He that's how he did it. He would read the body, and then he would needle you where you needed to be needled based on his read. And when he did that, he said, he goes, I need to needle your clavicle. He said, it's like, did you bruise it or did you fall? Did you break it? And I said, no, but my ex-husband did 2 days ago. And he said, oh, you're just processing that through you on his behalf, which, I like my ex-husband, all right. But, there are those times where we can be feeling the processing of those emotions on behalf of somebody else. And so I'm saying this because the other thing to pay attention to is if it belonged to somebody else, if it actually did belong to somebody else, how would you treat that part of yourself? What would you say to it? What would you say to yourself about the fact that it's there? If it just doesn't belong to you in the first place, and you're more the steward of that energy, you're the one that is capable of moving it. Um, I would start having conversations with the clavicle around that, and it'll probably release that energy a lot faster. Um, so yeah, it feels like you really already ran through a lot of your old bumps and bruises and breaks and things like that from earlier in this lifetime. So I don't see those coming back up and around as issues. So now that you're that much bigger and that have that much greater capacity, you're probably reaching out and seeing who else you could support. So whether you know it or not. Yeah.
Okay, this one is, does embodying light sometimes cause discomfort in the body?
Always. Always. 110%. Always. I think this is the biggest fallacy that we have in metaphysics or the spiritual community or that kind of thing, that somehow that we kind of have this idea of this embodiment of light or evolution or in some form of enlightenment or awakening, and we have this tendency to think that that's just all warm and fuzzy um and it's supposed to feel good. But again, anytime the body is changing from one frequency to another, it's going to burn out all the denser frequencies that no longer serve it. That's part of this give and take that happens all the time. So, again, when we are embodying more light, um, just like the last questioner was saying, we are moving more information through our bodies. So being kind and being gentle and being easy on ourselves is really important. It's not even the volume of energy that's moving through or the challenge or the discomfort that it's creating that is the issue. The issue is, how do we handle it? How do we meet what's happening? Right? So if we meet it with frustration and irritation and, oh my gosh, my body's not up to snuff or anything, then that slows the process. Whereas if we're like, okay, my body's embodying more light, and wow, my hip or my shoulder or my back is really trying to process this, it's doing the best job that it can. It really encouraging that part of the body to move that energy will move it so much faster. Yeah. Yeah. So let's not get stuck on what's moving. Let's pay attention to how we meet what's moving, how we address it. Yeah. Yeah. But always, just one more piece here, Sharon, before the next question. I was talking to somebody not too long ago. We were talking about, you know, like real spiritual awakenings are they're always uncomfortable because you're going from what you thought you were to what you actually are. And a little bit about what's going on out in the world right now has an awful lot to do with that. We're going from what we thought we were, or what the illusion of us was, to unwinding all of that. That's, this big flood of light coming in, unwinding all of that. And we're stepping into what we actually are in the process. And that's always a little messy, I gotta say. A little uncomfortable. Yeah.
Okay, so this question is, I was triggered by my mom over a private message. Big rage and heart racing, but I didn't respond that way. I couldn't shake the physical rage. I saw the root, betrayal, criticism, mocking. I breathed out of the heart space for 20 minutes, then fell asleep for 3 hours. I liked validation that we are powerful and we can truly shift using these tools. I
Yeah. Yeah.
did.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a great way to catch it in the moment and not project it back and allow yourself to be with that energy. It's like most people on this planet will project it back because it just is so painful to hold that kind of energy within them. And also, if if they don't project it back, a lot of times people will just beat up on themselves for having that reaction, right? That experience or that. So this capacity, and let me tell you, it is a deep, deep capacity to be able to feel something and to allow it to just be present within you, to place yourself in that sphere or breathe through your heart space, but allow that energy to be there. Because and you said it beautifully when you said you allowed that for about 20 minutes and then you slept for 3 hours. That's a perfect indication of the remodeling, or the that's how deep that work actually was. Yeah, so I really do want to validate you for doing it in that way. And was your body was so aware of the depth of what just happened that it needed to sleep for 3 hours to recuperate. So again, we're not going to make any of that wrong. All of that is absolutely as it should be. So, and even the trigger of this deep, yeah, those things that come up from deep within. And it's that in and of itself, it doesn't feel good, but it's beautiful too, because it's getting to a capacity within you that you just demonstrated for yourself. So yeah, that'll get easier and easier. You'll move it quicker and quicker through that process. Yeah.
I have had pain in my eyes and head, and when I place my consciousness in those places, the sensation of the pain is changed, almost as if no longer pain. Something is there, but not painful. What is happening?
You are placing the frequency of your own consciousness into the experience of pain, and it's dissipating it. You're reminding yourself of a skill set that you have always had, and probably even demonstrated when you were a lot younger, maybe in your innocence, but it's returning now. So for those of you who are on the monthly energy sessions, we talked about this at the beginning of January, this capacity to, at some point, a certain, let's say, volume of inner presence or inner purity or inner clarity is there, so much so that we start recognizing it as ourself. And once we start recognizing that as ourselves, we start broadcasting that out to whatever needs it. So whether it's an emotional trauma or whether it's a physical issue, and so that's what you're noticing. You're noticing your capacity to to move energy from what you actually are through anything that is a challenge. Yeah. And so it won't, and use it for everything. Use it for everything. And we can all practice this by sitting for a few moments and really getting an idea of whether you see it as that white blue star within you, that essence, that purity, that clarity, or whether, however you perceive it, you're just wanting to tap into that place within that knows what you actually are, not who you think you are, but what you actually are. That usually feels like spaciousness. It usually feels like clarity or vastness. It'll have different feelings. And then once you've establish that place within yourself as you have ailments or frustrations or irritations or any of that. You can just literally, just like a laser would move that energy with your focus to that place. That's exactly what you're doing. You're taking your own consciousness, the consciousness of what you are, and you're putting it into whatever that buildup of energy is, and it will dissipate it. Yeah, beautifully.
Okay. I find myself called to practice Ho'oponopono.
Oh, oh, I know. I can hardly say it too. Yeah.
Whenever I see hurt people or people hurting others, whether they be on a small or large scale, in my physical reality as well as what I may see on TV. If we continue to see such darkness in the outer, does this mean there are still aspects that we have not yet honored, integrated, and resolved? Or is it that I am being offered continual opportunities to practice my sharing, my giving, and love?
I think number two. Yeah. So definitely, you will always know if something outside is designed to um, help you move through something inside. If what is outside is creates a reaction, like a negative reaction in you. If it creates a negative reaction, then you are, let's say, and by reaction, I mean a negative reaction with nothing that follows it, just the projection of that energy. That's usually something for us to look at within ourselves. But when you see a world that is in distress, and you see the horrific nature of that, you don't even like, maybe we don't like that the way it is necessarily. Seeing it and being able to respond to it through your gifts, through your prayers, through your intentions, um, that absolutely is just a demonstration of your capacity. It has nothing to do with something that, where I think, again, another fallacy is that somehow that we're going to get rid of everything that's dark in the world. Um, we're going to get rid of that somehow. And we are definitely going to alter it. We're going to soften it. We're going to change it moment by moment as we meet it. Um, and maybe over a period of time, and collectively that energy starts to build and we start to dissipate that more and more. But right now we got an awful lot of darkness. There's an awful lot that we're working through collectively. And so your prayers and your capacities, your intentions, all of ours are really supportive right now. Really supportive. Yeah.
Okay. I have some loss of hearing in my right ear. It hasn't been significant, but in the past year, it has gotten pretty profound, and my ear literally feels muffled by some substance like cotton. I'm concerned that it will continue to progress. Is this just some age related phenomenon, a genetic, epigenetic inheritance, or is this something I don't want to hear or something I can't identify? Is there something I can release the blockage or effect?
Right, right. So I'm getting it as both. Whoops, sorry. I'm getting it as both and. So the first piece is that I um and I'm all about the right medicine for the right, you know, uh situation. So I would have it looked at. I mean, I definitely would have it looked at by, ear, nose, and throat kind of person. I would look at it at a physical level. And at the same time that you do that, I don't get that this is something that for whatever reason, I'm just going to say that it feels to me like you witnessed somebody not being willing to hear certain things, maybe even in your childhood. And that, um, and they, because they couldn't hear it, that whatever you were watching as a child, that person was not able to receive some information that was probably too painful. And as you watched it, you absorbed that on, yeah, on that person's behalf. And it's, I think it's been there. I think it's been there in the background for quite some time, and it's just kind of calcified a little bit over time. So, yeah.
Okay, this one I'm going to summarize. It's really long and quite personal.
Okay.
So, this one is about finding desires around with a sexual desires with a spouse,
Yeah.
and the spouse is they can find times when they connect spiritually, but he may be addicted to porn,
Hmm.
and so this person is instead of wanting to be physical, he's more interested in the porn.
Right.
And the basic question is, and then they both shut down, and she just wants to find out about the balance in the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Hold on a second here. So, uh, what I want to say is there is a little bit of what I'm getting is there's a little bit of a disassociation. Um, I'm going to speak on his part first. So there's a little bit of a disassociation going on there where uh, porn, offers the sensation and the stimulation, if you will, where, and that's different than intimacy. That's different than deep intimacy uh, and sexual connection through intimacy. There's a bit of a disconnect for him somewhere around. There's actually a bit of a fear that happens for him every now and again around the intimacy piece. And that's where that exploration can go. If whether you can say that to him or not, I don't know. um, but so if I take it over to your side of this conversation, then there's also a bit of it's a similar pattern, but from a little bit different angles. So what I would look at is where where is there a disassociation from intimacy, or a disassociation from intimacy with self, because the outer landscape, or because the world, um, because I'm going to say because you've been sexualized in the world, right? Or by the world. So it's almost like where I would look deeply at intimacy to self, right? What is my relationship with my own intimacy, my ability to look in to me and see intimacy, to look into me and see what's there. Yeah. And is there a disconnect in what is actually there and what you feel that you are able to express in the world, especially as it relates to that kind of more divine feminine energy. Yeah. So that's where I would look. All right. So if there aren't any more questions, let me just kind of check in and see if there's anything that just wants to be said before we close out today. And yeah, then we'll go. Let's see here. So I'm just going to reiterate that what happens in our world, in our personal worlds and out in the outer world, is all designed to evoke either response or reaction. When it evokes reaction, then there is something to be loved and cared for and nurtured within ourselves, something to be met. When it evokes a response, right, then we are seeing some of our capacities at play. And if we will be as kind and loving to ourselves in the process as we can be, we'll begin to see that we can use our capacities to help overcome some of our challenges. We can use our capacity to respond to big things, right? We can start using those for the more subtle things within us as well, right? So we want to know both. We want to know where we're able to respond, and we want to know where we are reacting, because like some big being said to me one day on a beach, there's no difference between the dark and the light's capacity to help you grow. Yeah, to help you evolve, to nurture you back into your own essence. So we're not going to make either one of those wrong, reaction or response. We're simply going to use it for what it's actually designed for, right? So again, reaction, we look inward, we have conversations, we look at who's scared or confused or angry or any of that, and that's where we have that deep intimacy, that deep connection to ourselves. And when we're in response mode, we acknowledge that we have these capacities. We have the capacity to love. We have the capacity to offer prayer and blessings and guidance and support. And we want to know both about ourselves. Yeah. So, yeah, I hope that's helpful, everybody. I really appreciate your questions. I appreciate them being as candid as they are too. So anyway, I will see you next time around. All right. Lots of love, everybody. Bye.